right. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Dr. Maiysha. I am the founder of the um, Mind ReMapping Academy, master practitioner trainer of neurolinguistic programming, hypnosis, and timeline therapy. And so, you know, if you guys know me and follow me, you know that I always have a topic that I'm intending to talk about, and sometimes I end up talking about something else, and such is the case today. So I had an intention of something that I wanted to chat about, and then something else came up, and that is talking about the connection, of our decisions and our unconscious fears versus our commitments. And so, the question is, where do you make your decisions from? And how this came up is I was having a conversation with a potential client, and I will tell you that I have had this conversation a million times before. And this is a person who I've engaged with in the past. And in that past, um, what she identified is that some of the decisions that she, or a lot of the major decisions that she had been making were made from the past out of her fear of not being valued, fear of um, people saying no, that fear of rejection. And what that has done, what that had cost her is um, her aliveness, her feeling of aliveness, and also this experience of feeling like she's living out her full potential. And so, as we spoke on the phone the other day, one of the things that she shared with me is that she can see that she is the biggest person in her own way. And I asked her, I said, well, are you committed to releasing some of these doubts and these fears? And she said to me, and I thought this was very interesting, I'm committed until something happens that sabotages, or until a barrier comes. And then that commitment goes away. So, what I shared with her in that moment is I said, I just need to, to make you aware that you're not committed. You're not actually committed, right? What that was a fear, an action from fear. So, excuse me, as we went on, she could really see where that fear was intercepting what she and masking as what she thought was a commitment. So now, why do I say all of this? Because in our lives, we think we're committed to things, and and we think we're committed to things until an obstacle comes up. But the truth is, obstacles will always come up. Obstacles will come up every single day, every single week, every single month. The question is, what are you really committed to? Right now, you could be committed to being safe. You could be uh, committed to being right. And a lot of people are. Or you could be committed to the thing that you're committed to. What do I mean by that? Well, what is the vision? What is it that you're trying to achieve? I know, for me, coming out of, going into medicine, knowing that the path that I took was going to be different, that it was going to be an upstream, I call it a battle, but journey. That's the word that I'll use. An upstream journey. Like, knowing that from the beginning, I still took that path because I had a particular commitment. And that commitment was to bring a different conversation to the way we heal our bodies. And it wasn't the popular way, especially back then. I look young, but I'm actually, I actually been practicing, or I practiced integrative medicine before it became popular, back when it was still called quackery, right? And now it's popular and everybody wants to take the integrative approach. But the when I had this particular commitment since I went to medical school, which was to bring a different conversation of healing to the community. Ah, thank you, Jonathan. And so there were all types of things that came into my path along that journey. People who said things, people who a lot of naysayers, people who tried to tell me I could not do it a particular way. I could not start a practice the way that I started a practice. I could not succeed in an industry where insurances wouldn't pay for. And any one of those things could have derailed me. Any one of those things could have, the fear could have come in at any time. And I could have said, you know what, maybe I should just go get a traditional, job in a traditional practice. But that wasn't my commitment. Now, that's not to say that fear didn't come up. That's not to say that those conversations didn't happen inside of me. But the fear was not bigger than the commitment. The commitment was, and I'll tell you, there was something else I was really committed to, right? And if there was the commitment to the world out there in the world, and there was a commitment to my own freedom and autonomy as well. Because what I knew is that inside of the system, the traditional system of healthcare, I would not be able to practice what my values truly were aligned with. So that commitment overrode the fear of whether or not I'd succeed or whether or not I'd make enough money or whether or not, I could give any number of things, right? And that led me on that path, that sort of uphill journey or upstream journey, as I mentioned earlier. Later on, into practice, um, however many years, 5, 6 years into practice, when I realized that there was still more for me, there was still a bigger calling out there for me. But guess what? I had spent all this money on medical school, all this time getting my training, my specialty. And now here I am about to transition out of this profession. Was there fear? Absolutely. But what was my higher commitment? Now, there were a couple of different layers of commitments. Now, I will say, we talk about fear versus commitment. I always go back to values and what's important to you. Our commitment and our motivations, they usually come from what's important to us. And if when we're looking at our values and we're looking at what's important to us, if we're running away from something bad, then that fear of not having the bad thing or the bad circumstance is going to drive us just as much as the fear of something that you want to achieve or want to give to the world or want to happen, right? One pulls us forward and the other one pushes us away just long enough to be comfortable. And I know that some of you who follow me know that you've probably heard this before, but it bears repeating. So when we think about what's important to us, we think about our commitment, we have to look at what are we committed to? What's the value that's driving the commitment, right? Because the value that's driving the commitment will be the thing that either pulls you along beyond, up and over and beyond the fear of it not going the way that you think it should go, or if it's something that you're running away from, then it'll only push you as far as you need to go to be comfortable. That's why it's so important to understand the fear versus the commitment and the relationship of your commitment to the value, and whether it's a fear-based value or a fear-based commitment, or whether it's a vision-based commitment, right? So what are you committed to? What are you actually committed to? So the question might be, what's driving your decisions, fear or commitment? But also you want to ask the question, what's driving your commitment? What value? Is it a fear-based value or is it a vision-based value? Okay. So now, as I was sharing with you earlier, This transition from medicine to the coaching world, the world of helping people get helping, specifically at the time, helping moms in medicine move through burnout, helping them to redefine and define careers that they love, bring meaning back to their careers, right? That was the vision. That was what pulled me forward. It was the contribution that I would make. It was the light bulb that came on in their eyes when they had such progress. It was the new careers and the new lives that they were starting to create, that that was the motivator for me. That was the vision, to see that continue to happen, that pulled me forward beyond the fear of, well, is this valid? Or, will I make enough money? Or will I be able to thrive and survive? And that pulled me forward. And of course, that I was able to, I have been able to, and like I've transitioned since then a little bit, but to thrive now. Those of you, again, those of you who know me, who follow me, know that I do a lot of things. I'm in about my third iteration of my career. And what I'll say about that is that I'm pulled into each iteration of my journey. By nature, I'm a healer, but each generation of my journey that I'm pulled is based in a commitment. Is based in a commitment. So, that next level of commitment for me was, how do I get the tools and the knowledge that I've learned, these tools that I use every day, the NLP, the hypnosis, the tools of conscious language, the mind remapping. How do I get those tools out into the world? Because yeah, I can coach people. It's like the difference between giving a person a fish and teaching them to fish, right? So I can do that, but the next level is giving those tools away, like giving them to people so that they can duplicate these efforts, and we can actually have a shift in the community and the world. So, of course, by this time, there is another transition at bay. There's an unknown. And is there fear? Absolutely, there's fear. The fear will always be there. So there's this like myth. There's a myth out there that when you're making these transitions, when you're going on stage, or when you're doing something big, or when you're doing something new, that you have to be fear, like there has to be no fear, like fearless. And that's not really the truth. The truth is, we're human. Our body, for some of us, we will feel that nervousness, that butterflies in our stomach, that fear. But the question is, how will we reframe that fear? Right? For some people, they frame the fear as, oh, there's danger. And I mean, that's human too, right? Because fear, that natural emotion of fear, is an indicator. It's supposed to be a warning signal for danger, so that when the lion, the tiger, or the bear is coming for you, oh my, you should run. And the problem is that our brains don't always distinguish, like, the real threat from the perceived threat, from the perceived danger, right? And for some, the social threat is a very real threat. The failure threat is a very real threat, because there's a meaning that we make to those things. There's a meaning that we give to those things, like failure, like, what the social, what other people will think of us. And I remember that, like, even in transitioning from my clinical practice as a physician to this world of coaching, and what will people think of me? And when I coached doctors and I coached, these high professionals who were transitioning, that was a big question. Like, what will people think of me? I spent all this time and all this money to get this degree, only to leave it behind, right? So the um the fear will come, and we must not be afraid of that discomfort of that. We really need to distinguish for ourselves, is that a real or imagined fear? And what is the commitment that will pull you forward. So if you're operating inside a fear-based value, a value to get away from something bad, how can you then reframe that to be a vision-based value? What is it that you need to let go of? What belief, what attitude, what decision that you've made is it that you need to let go of in order to reframe that fear based value into a commitment or a vision based value? And that's something that you can look at, whether it be in your, in your careers or with your family or in relationship. I know a lot of people who are in a relationship or who want to start dating again, right? Who don't trust. They don't trust because they've been hurt before. Valid, right? Someone's hurt you before. So then there's a decision is made about their ability to trust or who can be trusted. And that drives um that drives their behavior. So then the thing to really look at is what is the internal conversation, or what is the thing that happened that had you come to that decision not to be able to trust? And then what are you committed to inside of a relationship that would have you take that risk? And what do you need to put in place in order to see the red flags so that you feel safe enough? Because a lot of this is about safety. You feel safe enough to take those steps in a very strategic and calculated way. In this work of um, equity, diversity, inclusion that I do, I see a lot of this as well. The fear-based decisions, the fear-based values, right? You know, the checking off the box, or the fear to not pursue educating oneself about the culture, the dominant culture, because what will that mean about me? What will that what will that mean about my worth as a person? Am I a bad person? What will that mean about what I've been doing all of this time? It's a fear-based uh, it's a fear-based decision-making process. And so I could say more about that, but I'll hold that for a different conversation because that's not what I'm talking about today. Fear is so ingrained in our society. It's almost the thing that keeps our society moving. The fear of the market, the fear, and everybody makes decisions based on fear. But that doesn't have to be what you do. That doesn't have to be who you are. And even if you say, well, no, I make my decisions based on commitment, I let things pull me forward, I encourage you and I empower you and I invite you to look deeply at what places in your life are you stopped? What places are in your life do you hesitate? And dig into that and see, is there any like trace of fear there, trace of doubt? Because doubt is also fear based, right? Two major emotions, love and fear, right? So what's driving you? And so, you ask yourself, what if there's doubt there? What is the fear behind the doubt? If there's procrastination, what is the emotion or the fear behind the procrastination that has you put stuff off? People say procrastination is laziness. I don't believe in laziness. I believe that there's always an intention behind a behavior or a lack of a behavior. And so, as you really take this on this as a practice to look at where your commitments are based in values from fear or values of vision, as you take on that practice, look in every area of your life. Look at your relationships, your businesses and careers. Look at, um, yes, yes. Look at your relationship with your spouse, your partner, your children. Your children, parents, look at the relationship of your children. W- How we respond to our children, those big reactions we have to our children, those things are those buttons, those reactions are our own unhealed trauma. Those reactions are based in fear of what was either done to us, what has happened to us. Those things are the things we need to be looking at. Because if we talk about, and I love what you're saying, um, design a rose interiors. If you base your decisions on fear, you'll surround yourself with things you don't trust. Facts. And I see these things in my life so hard to figure out why I can't move on. Yes. And it's because a lot of times we have these blind spots. We have these blind spots and there's only so much. It's like we even though our mothers used to tell us they have eyes in the back of their head, and I maintain that um, with my son. So I can see everything. I can see everything that you do. I tell him, I have a just a sidebar. I have some cameras around the house, and so my office is upstairs, and the playroom is downstairs, and I often will. My son will be downstairs, and I sometimes check on him if I'm working and he's home, and I will talk through the camera. I see you. Hi, Delson. Stop jumping on the couch, Delson. So even though our even though our parents will maintain that they have eyes in the back of our head, we have eyes in the back of our head. The truth is we don't. And we can only see what we are programmed to see, what our limiting beliefs and decisions. Hey, networking, um, network king. Yes. We can only see what our current beliefs and values will allow us to see. We can only see that much. So, as conscious as we might become of our behaviors and things that we need to shift and change, there's always the thing in that unconscious, that subconscious that we can't touch. And that's why a lot of times I work with people, is because there are the things that I'm trained to hear that others like me are trained to hear that we can't hear because we're the fish in water, right? The fish in the ocean doesn't know they're in the ocean until they're out of the ocean and they can't breathe, right? So, or breathe. Um, so that's why it can be difficult, even when you see these things in your life. It can be difficult to change them because there's always there's a blind spot that prevents that from happening. So as you're taking this on, and and I'm going to come back to the parent thing, right? These big reactions that we have to our children, as I'm all about generational conversations. These big reactions that we have to our children, sometimes they're based in our values, sometimes fear-based values, fear of what um, what has happened to us, fear of what didn't happen for us, fear of what's going out on the world and what we want to prevent from happening to our children. And I know this. I'm raising a little black son. And so um, when we have to begin to look at what we're passing on to our kids, what conversations we're passing on to our kids, um, through these fear-based values or vision-based values. So which are you operating from? And in order to know, you have to also know your values, like what's important to you. It's one of the most important things to start to take a look at. Well, what is really important to you? What do you hold as a value? Are your actions in line with those values? You hear me talk about this all the time, I know. Are your actions consistent with your values? What do you believe? What are your attitudes? Are those beliefs based in fear, or are they based in vision and commitment? And if they're based in fear, what is the source of that? And then it's useful to begin to work with someone to be able to um, dissolve the fear and the beliefs that have you um, not be able to transform that thing. So, with that said, um, I will leave you with the question: what are you basing your actions, your decisions, your behaviors on? Are they based in fear? Are they based in commitment? And if you really truly believe that your actions are based in commitment, connect to the value of that commitment. What's motivating that commitment? Is it a value that's based in getting away from something, or a value that's based in pulling you towards something? And even if it's a value based in that's pulling you towards something, let's go a little deeper. Is that pulling you towards something based in fear of what you won't get or what won't happen? Because if it is, guess what? It's still moving away from something. Tricky. Or is it something that's pulling you forward that's truly a value based on vision? And how you know that is that you're connected to something bigger than just yourself in that vision, right? You're connected to something bigger than what's immediately around you in that vision. Many times, when that's pulling you forward, then you know you're onto something. And those are the kinds of visions that move people beyond fear, that have people take action in spite of fear. That's called courage, right? That the two things that have people take action in spite of fear, courage and desperation. So let it not be desperation, but courage, or I guess whatever gets you there, quite frankly. Um, right. But we can be preventive. So if you're being preventive, it would be like that conscious courage. And if it's reactive, it might be more out of like the discomfort of the current situation. But honestly, there's no real judgment about which it is. Whatever gets you to the place it needs to be. And when you become practiced in this work, you'll start to recognize the conscious courage versus the reactionary sort of desperation. All right. And there's no judgment in either of those. So that's what I'll leave you with. If you know that, as this, all of this work that I do is based in the mind remapping that I both do personally with one-on-one with people, and that I teach. If this is something, if these are tools that you are thinking, gosh, I really want to learn, not mind remapping, I really want to learn the tools of neuro linguistic programming, of NLP, of hypnosis, of timeline therapy. If you're a coach, or if you're a healthcare provider, if you're a healer, if you're a person who is a service provider who works with others, a leader in an organization, and you think that these conscious mind remapping tools, this conscious use of language, utilizing language to reframe reframe and empower and recontextualize disempowering thoughts and actions and behaviors. If this is something you want to learn, this is what I do. And so, I do have trainings 4 times a year. We have one coming up in September and November. These are the two that are open. And if you want to know more, if you're here with me on Instagram, you can just click the link in the bio. If you are here on YouTube with me, you can go to the description and the link should be there. And if you are here with me on LinkedIn or Facebook, you could just reach out to me personally, or you can check in the comments. I'll post the link in the comments a little bit later. If you feel like you do need a little bit one-on-one, if you're like personally struggling and you're trying to get through some of these beliefs, and you find it very difficult, and you want to have a little personal one-on-one transformation, you can reach out to me directly as well by message, or you can schedule a call by clicking the links in the bio. or in the description. So that is that. I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of the week. I have to look at what day it is. It's still Tuesday. We still have the whole week ahead of us. This weekend, for you guys who don't know, is our women's wellness retreat. So hold us in your thoughts and hearts as we travel on Friday. We have 9 amazing women who are going to be joining us in the ridges at the Ridges Resort in Lake Chatouge in the North Georgia Mountains, and so we expect that that's going to be an amazing retreat. So stay tuned. I'm sure there'll be some debriefing. All right, you guys have a great rest of the day, great rest of the week. You know how to reach me, mindremappingacademy.com. Click or you can go ahead and reach out to me personally by message or click the links in my bio and description. Have a great rest of the day. Namaste.